Welcome to the first how to play video for Torch and Shield. In this video, we'll cover the basic concepts of the game and play through a simple turn. If you've watched the introduction, you will already have an understanding about what Torch and Shield is. So in this video, we are going to focus on how the game works. To do this, we are going to examine a conflict between two dwarf clans. First, we have the Iron Thanes. This crew consists of the clansmen Varka and two shortbeards, Korda and Lum. Next, we have the Copperbrows. The Thane Gaston is accompanied by a clansman Arex. Although the Copperbrow crew is smaller, Gaston is a hero with skills and abilities that more than makes up for their crew's discrepancy in numbers. Let's look at Gaston a little more closely. All of your warriors in Torch and Shield will have a profile card. The profile card keeps record of each warrior's characteristics, their equipment and any other special skills or abilities, referred to as traits or special actions. The profile card also tracks any wounds they have suffered, or if they need to reload their weapon. Now let's look at his characteristics and what they mean. First, he has move. This is an indication of how fast the dwarf may move in the underworld. Gaston can move 4 squares in the underworld with a normal move action. Next is his martial skill. This shows how capable a fighter he is. The first value is his skill in close combat using weapons like swords and axes. The second value is his skill with ranged attack weapons, such as crossbows or pistols. Then we have strength, resilience, and agility, which we will explain in detail later. Finally, we have nerve, which represents how brave he is and how cool under pressure. Delve, which indicates how experienced Gaston is at traversing the darkness of the ruins, and craft, which is his skill at making or fixing things and detecting traps and the like. Characteristics in Torch and Shield are used to make tests. A test is resolved by rolling dice equal to a warrior's relevant characteristic. For example, if Gaston wanted to unlock a door, he would need to take a craft test. As he has a craft of 2, he would roll 2 dice. Any dice that roll 5 or 6 are considered successes. In most situations, only a single success is required to pass a test. So in this case, Gaston would have unlocked the door. Last of all, there are 2 special characteristics that only heroes have. Valor, which is the hero's ability to rise to the occasion and create victory, and Fortune, which is how lucky the hero is. Fortune can keep your hero alive longer. Alright, let's go down into the ruins and see what's going on with the 2 clans. On the left we have the Iron Thanes and on the right the Copperbrows. In between them is a large pile of treasure. No doubt the cause of this disagreement. A game of Torch and Shield is made up of several turns and each turn is split into 4 phases. The delving phase, the monster phase, the fight phase, and the event phase. We're going to start with the delving phase on the second turn of the game. Each player will use a deck of playing cards with 2 jokers. At the start of each delving phase, players will draw a card for each warrior in their crew. If their crew has a model with the leader trait, they will draw 1 additional card. In our conflict here, the Iron Thanes will draw 3 cards. The Copperbrows will draw 2 cards plus an extra card because Gaston is a hero with the leader trait. Okay, let's see what the 2 crews have to work with. The cards set the order of play. Working down the card values, players activate warriors with their cards. Aces can be used either first in the order or last. Jokers can be used as any value you like and can interrupt the sequence of play. Any ties are resolved by suit order. Hearts highest, then diamonds, next is clubs, last is spades. Okay, it's time to resolve the delving phase. The first card to activate is the Jack. Because the Copperbrows have a leader hero, they may keep 1 card between turns for use later. This is called sheathing the card. The Copperbrow player decides this card will be more useful later and sheathes it. The Iron Thane's 9 of clubs is the next highest. They use it to perform a move action with the shortbeard Lum. He has a move characteristic of 4 and moves 4 spaces in front of the treasure. Next up, the Copperbrows with their 8 of diamonds. The clansman Arex decides that the Iron Thane shortbeard is too close to the treasure and takes aim with his firelock. He is performing a ranged attack action. To perform a ranged attack action, a warrior checks the second value of their martial skill characteristic. Arex has a martial skill of 2 for ranged attacks, so normally he would roll 2 dice. However, because Lum is only 3 squares away from Arex, he is considered to be at close range, and Arex will roll an additional dice to see if he hits. Only 5s and 6s are successes, but Arex got 1. He hits the enemy Shortbeard with his firelock. Lum has a shield and gets to roll 1 dice to try and block the hit. He rolls a 3, so he does not deflect the shot. Now we must determine if the Shortbeard is hurt and how badly. We do this by comparing the strength of the firelock to the resilience of the Shortbeard, Lum. Lum is wearing a breastplate, but as the firelock has the piercing trait, it ignores armor. The firelock has a strength of 6 and Lum has a resilience of 2. So we reduce the strength of the firelock by 2, down to 4. Then we roll 4 dice. Each success will cause 1 damage to Lum. That's 2 successes causing 2 damage. If a dwarf takes damage, unless the rules say it is a flesh wound, the warrior will be knocked down. Each damage taken reduces a model's resilience. So Lum has now been reduced to a resilience of 0. When a model is reduced to a resilience of 0, they enter the wounded state and all of their other characteristics are reduced by 1. Any model that has their resilience reduced below 0 is removed as a casualty. Lum is now looking a bit worse for wear. It will be up to his kinsman to win the day. Moving on, both sides have a 5, but as clubs go before spades, the Iron Thanes will go first. Using a move action, Korda advances to support his fallen comrade. Korda has blocked off the top half of the area of play now. This is because of his combat zone. A model's combat zone represents its threat range and covers the 8 adjacent squares immediately surrounding the model, as shown here. Enemy models may not move through a combat zone and must stop if they enter one. Likewise, if a model starts its activation in a combat zone, it must perform an evade action to leave it. Models that are knocked down or engaged do not exert a combat zone. It's the Copper Brow's turn again with the 5 of spades. Gaston uses his activation to move forward into the combat zone and engage Korda. Engaged models will fight in the fight phase. Push the 2 models into contact so you know they are engaged. Farka is left to go with the 2. He can't reach any of the Copper Brows, so his battle axe will have to wait. He advances forward with a move action. Once all warriors have activated, the delving phase is over. Now we will move on to the monster phase. In the monster phase, we do 2 things. First, we check to see if any dwarves are shrouded. A model is shrouded when they are not illuminated by any light sources. Light sources, such as a torch or lantern, illuminate all models within the same room or corridor. They will also illuminate any spaces outside of the room or corridor they are in, provided they are in line of sight and within 8 spaces. In our conflict, there are 2 light sources. Korda has a lantern and Arex has a torch. Because all our warriors are in the same room, they are all considered to be illuminated. As the game goes on, these light sources will burn out. Models that start the monster phase shrouded will need to check for danger in the dark. But we will deal with that later. The second part of the monster phase is to activate monsters. Currently, there are no monsters threatening our warriors, at least not that we know about. So we will end the monster phase and move on to the fight phase. In the fight phase, we resolve each individual combat. Let's zoom in to resolve the fight between Gaston and Korda. Fights are managed through a process called the contest. A contest is an opposed test where warriors will set their skill at arms against their opponent. Both warriors will roll dice equal to the first value on their martial skill characteristic. The player that rolls the most successes will score a hit for each success over and above their opponent. Korda the Shortbeard has a martial skill of 3 in combat. Gaston the Thane has a martial skill of 5. Sometimes there can be modifiers which may increase or decrease the warrior's martial skills in the contest. These are explained in more detail later and in full within the Torch and Shield Corps rules. There are no further modifiers in this contest, so let's see how it goes. Korda has scored 2 successes. Pretty good for a Shortbeard. Gaston has also scored 2 successes, so it's a draw. Normally a draw will require both sides to roll again, with an additional dice each. But Gaston has a weapon with the riposte trait. This means that he will win drawn contests, scoring a single hit. When one of your warriors is hit in the contest, they are driven back. You may choose to move your warrior back into any of the 3 squares behind the model. Korda only has 2 empty spaces available and chooses to go straight back. Now, Gaston may choose to press the attack if he wants. To press the attack, you move the model that scored the hit into the square that was just vacated. Now it's time to resolve damage. This uses the same process as earlier, except in close combat the strength is based on the strength of the warrior. That strength can be further modified by the weapon in use. In this case, Gaston has a strength of 5. The two-handed sword also adds an additional 2 to his strength for a total of 7. Korda has a resilience of 2, so Gaston will roll 5 dice on the damage roll. He rolls 2 successes. Korda has a breastplate which will remove the second success on a damage roll, so Korda takes 1 damage. Models that take damage in a contest are knocked down. With that, the fight phase is over. It's time to move on to the event phase. The event phase starts by ending all engagements. Separate any models. All combat zones will now be active again for next turn's delving phase. Crews that suffer too many casualties will need to test their nerve or turn back. But as there have been no casualties, that doesn't apply this turn. Then we check to see if anyone has captured the objective. To capture an objective, a crew must have a model within 2 spaces of it, and there must be no enemy models within 2 spaces. Otherwise, the objective is denied. As both clans have models within 2 spaces of the treasure, the objective remains denied. In the event phase, the darkness draws ever closer, so we must check if the light sources burn out. Usually this covers the torches and lanterns your warriors are carrying, but can also include burning spaces, objects, and models. At the start of the game, the scenario will tell you to set the fuel counter at a certain number. During the event phase, at the light sources step, the fuel counter will go down by 1. Once the fuel counter hits 0, players will roll to see if their light sources go out every subsequent event phase. This game, the fuel counter started at 1 and went down to 0 last turn, so the crews will need to check their light sources. Roll a dice for each. Lanterns will burn out on a roll of 1, torches on a roll of 1 or 2. Anything else burning will go out on a 1, 2, or 3. Any object or model still burning after these rolls will suffer 1 damage. The Iron Thanes roll for their lantern, and the Copper Brows roll for their torch. Oh dear, it looks like both lights have fizzled out. Now everyone is shrouded. Lastly, it is time to draw an event. Lots of different things can happen in the underworld, and some scenarios have scheduled events which will happen in this phase. In most turns, however, you will flip a card to see if a random event occurs. The 10 of Hearts. Checking the event table, it says to place 1 brood monster on the monster entrance. Every scenario will have at least 1 monster entrance where the creatures of the abyss will spawn from. The dwarves call these wicked creatures Dark Dwellers. They try to drag dwarves into the darkness for their unknown ends. The dwarves show them no mercy. They will have to deal with this creature next turn. That's the end of the turn and the end of this video. In the next video, which covers the next turn, we will look at some of the more interesting mechanics of Torch and Shield. We will look at special actions, monster actions, and outnumbered contests. Until next time, keep your torches lit and your axes sharp.